Back inside the NFL Combine, Matthew Coller here, along with Andrew Krammer of the Star Tribune. Let's not waste any time, Andrew. You got to run, do some reporting or something for the newspaper. What'd you think of Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi adofo-mensah here at the podiums?
I think Kevin O'Connell is never short on words, certainly, but he was a little short on insight in terms of what they're going to do at quarterback. We can read between the tea leaves. Much of it was echoing and chorusing what he has said throughout the offseason, Matt. We heard them after the season. We heard Kevin at the Super Bowl when he was accepting Coach of the Year talk about Sam Darnold being a guy who's going to go out there and explore, being the right to be a Pro Bowl quarterback and all the suitors that he might get and all those things. And the Vikings are keeping open the possibility of keeping him, obviously, but they keep talking like they expect someone else to come with a bigger paycheck for him, which really should be no shock. And I think the big takeaway that I'm sure you've already talked about is that they feel like J.J. McCarthy will be ready for the start of the offseason program. Obviously, his weight is getting back up to where it needs to be and all those things. So they're very happy with their rookie pick, which is obviously the undercurrent of why they might let Sam Darnold walk out the door.
So I enjoy this game of Clue, is what I called it in my article. We're going to get all the answers in like 2 weeks, but like, why don't we just all play a game right now where we guess and we try to get Sherlock Holmes, what has he got, like a magnifying glass?
Monocle or magnifying glass, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so we're looking at the quotes like, what does he really mean? But I think it's two things are really pointing us in a very clear direction. Number one is that they want us to know that J.J. McCarthy is doing very well in his recovery. He is up over 200 pounds, which we were all told, and he is going to be ready for that off-season program. And you're like, oh, well, that sounds like they're trying to let us know that he's in good shape, because that has been one of the questions about how his recovery was going after a second procedure, and then everybody saw him on TV with the weight loss and all that sort of stuff. That was by far the biggest update we got, was like, okay, he's tracking toward being ready for the off-season program, which starts really in April is the first workouts, and then the OTAs minicamp happens through May and June. So if he's good to go with all that, and they're telling us that, that's kind of a signal right there. But I think it's about what was not said, Mr. Krammer, that told me the most about where they stand with all this. Not one time has Kevin O'Connell told us to be patient with J.J. McCarthy. Last year, after they drafted him, he told us about 20 times to be patient with J.J. McCarthy. If he had told us at any point at the podium, hey, you guys, we don't want to push J.J. or we don't want to rush him or he's still young, those were never thrown out there. It's just like, yeah, we taught him how to be a quarterback last year when he wasn't playing, so it's time. That was my takeaway.
That's a good point. And in terms of what he did last year, because I think fans are going to want to know how ready is he going to be for this season to play, maybe even week one if that's what ends up being. Now, they don't know who the quarterback is going to be with him, Matt, so I don't know how much it's going to behoove them to come out and try to put the brakes on J.J. McCarthy. At this point, he is the only guy under contract for them moving forward at quarterback. That's not going to stay the same. They're going to bring somebody else in. Is it Daniel Jones? Is it Sam Darnold? Is it somebody else that comes in and is that guy? So I think the lack of them knowing we have a backup option or insurance policy, there's no reason to say that. I do expect, though, once they sign somebody, and I expect that once they get JJ into OTAs, into training camp, we're probably going to hear a lot of that. We're probably going to hear a lot of, let's temper expectations. Let's kind of put a lid on things, because that's what they did with Sam Darnold last year. Last year it was all summer. It was, well, we're teaching him the offense. He's getting all the first-team reps. We really need him to learn this, but let's just kind of keep expectations. And then when he played well, it was, well, we always expected this. We always knew he was going to come out there and do this. So I think they're going to ride those expectation waves this summer with JJ, certainly. I don't know if I'm taking too much away from that, but what he did last year throughout the not being able to practice or anything, they felt like he was able to at least be part of the meeting rooms, be at the games, and they eventually told him to get off of his feet on the sideline, because I think that might have been a little bit of a problem with him jumping up and down and getting all excited and stuff. But he wore the headset during games. He listened to what was happening. They felt like he got a good foundation. So I understand why they're optimistic, but we're not going to know until he steps on the field. How did that footwork retain? How did everything he did during OTAs and the little bit of training camp he got, how is that going to stick with him? And I think that's going to tell the story of how truly ready he is.
That is all 100% true, and I feel like the minute that he steps on the field for the first OTA, he is the guy, and the expectations are sky high. There is no sitting around and screwing around. Hey, this is the National Football League, my friend. I don't know if you've heard. That's not how it works. Like, no, truly.
Tell Kevin that.
Not when you win 14 games and you have, like let's look around at this whole roster. Who's young? Nobody. Justin Jefferson's in his prime. Jordan Addison's going to year 3. TJ Hawkinson is a veteran. Down Jonathan Grenard, to me, is one of those foundational elite players that they have. That's a veteran. They bring back Byron Murphy or Cam Bynum. Those guys are second contract type of guys. There's going to be money if they get Trey Smith or whatever other combination of veteran guards. You're going to look around. Aaron Jones will be in the backfield and be like, this ain't a young team. Mm-hmm. This is a team that is fully ready to support, in the best way possible, a young quarterback. But it's also a team, in my opinion, that the expectation should be you're in the playoffs, you're winning, you're competing, and they should only do it with him. They should only move on from Darnold if they can get there, which, based on where he was last year, I think that that's a fair expectation for him. Maybe you're right that they will talk about that, but I debated this with Dane yesterday because he was like, well, maybe they'll have some sort of competition. I'm like, you can't do that. Like, it's go time, man. It's go time. If JJ's out there, it's go time.
Yeah, we know McCarthy did not throw to Justin Jefferson really much at all last summer. I expect that when things start up in May, once they actually get back on the field with all those guys and the veterans and OTAs in late May, he's got to be the one throwing to Jefferson. Even if it's Daniel Jones, even if they need to bring in another new quarterback. I know Daniel had a month with the team last year, but if they have to bring in another new guy to fully immerse himself in the system, it will be fascinating to see how they divvy that up, because I would agree with you. I would think that everybody internally, from what we've heard, they're so excited to see how McCarthy looks in this offense, how he looks throwing to JJ, throwing to TJ Hawkinson, who couldn't do anything last summer, throwing to Jordan Addison, all those things. This offense is set up for him to hit the ground running. I do believe they're going to give him every chance to do that, but you know Kevin O'Connell. You know the quarterback journey, the quarterback mindset. He's going to want to make sure that that kid is not too over his skis, that expectations aren't getting raised too high. Wherever the vibe's at, Kevin is going to try and bring that thing back to the middle. And right now the vibe is low because J.J. McCarthy was reportedly under 200 pounds, skinny as heck. We saw him around the locker room looking like a shell of himself, at least lower half. He wasn't squatting. He wasn't doing weight room stuff. So I think the vibes are low, which is why you're kind of feeling it being brought back up. And you know, Matt, we've been around forever. This summer, they're going to try and bring it back down, but I agree with you. It needs to be full steam ahead, and that runway for him needs to be pretty clear.
What else you've been thinking about, talking about around here? Because clearly the quarterback situation is a pretty big deal, but there's also a bunch of other decisions that this team has to make on the roster, and let's just simulate past the Sam Darnold thing. Let's just say that they tag and trade him, and he's a Raider, and they've got one extra third-round pick. Are they trading down? Are they going crazy in free agency? Can they? Because there's only so many good players in free agency, and there's a lot of teams that have cap space, especially since there was more cap space added to the salary cap. Like, what's your biggest storyline, if you will, from Indy?
Well, we recently heard, reportedly, I actually confirmed this last night, Jonathan Allen is the Commanders' interior defender, is on the market, wants to get traded. And in his camp, he's based out of Minneapolis, his agency is, and they are in the Vikings' ear saying, hey, this would make a ton of sense for you guys, and we would certainly love if you guys made a move to come get him. Who knows if that's going to happen? I was told that a lot of things that make sense in the NFL do not end up happening, so we'll see. I have not heard that the Vikings reached out to them yet at this point, but they're hoping to learn more at the Combine. Jonathan Allen's camp is, so that'll be fascinating to see because they need an interior defender. We know that they met as well with Derek Harmon, the interior defender for Oregon. They had a formal meeting with him earlier this week. He's an option at number 24 overall. They need to beef up their trenches, their lines. We heard about them bringing in an assistant offensive line coach with kind of a shoddy record of being rough on his players, but that's the kind of vibe that they're trying to instill here with their trenches. They just saw Philadelphia. They saw teams who played late thrive in those spots, and the Vikings know that they need to improve on both sides. So to me, the defensive line has been a big talker at this point, whether it's Jonathan Allen, whether it's the rookies that they might want to make a move on come draft time. And then when it comes to free agency, you mentioned they've got money. They've got money to spend. We know they really want to keep Byron Murphy. They pushed that void date back for him up until the eve of free agency opening on March 12th to try and keep open the possibility of extending him before that. Even if they don't, I've been told that they still want to make sure that they try to sign him if he hits that open market. We'll see if he does. It's a great question for him. It's a great question to see whether or not they keep him, an intriguing one, because we're just not sure at that corner spot what else they have. And I think that's going to lend to them being very aggressive to try and keep him.
Folks, I'm trying a new thing in order to stop ordering from fast food restaurants all the time with my busy schedule. It's called Tempo Meals. Tempo is a weekly delivery service that delivers chef-crafted meals from a dietitian-approved menu right to your door. Their perfectly portioned lunches and dinners take the guesswork out of eating as well. They're fully prepared, and they can be heated in the microwave in just 3 minutes. I got my first box, and wow. Talk about easy and delicious. I got sweet and tangy chicken, mozzarella marinara chicken, and barbecue chicken. Kind of a trend there, but there's so many more options than that. All of them tasted great for me, were super quick and easy to make. They were my choices out of dozens and dozens that took about 5 clicks to get set up with Tempo Meals. For a limited time, Tempo is offering my listeners 60% off your first box. Just go to tempomeals.com/Purple Insider. That is tempomeals.com/Purple Insider for 60% off your first box. Rules and restrictions apply. You know, with the Byron Murphy thing, my initial thought was, it's just going to be too much money. But then the cap goes up, and then the cap's going to keep going up. And all of a sudden, if you sign somebody to $17 million, there's sticker shock. But then 3 years in, you're like, oh, that's like nothing.
Yeah,
and
right.
I think that does change the game a little bit for the Vikings. And I didn't realize until we got here and started talking to people how much they do want Byron Murphy back. Because, they moved back the void date with Delvin Tomlinson. Like, how serious is that really? And then I got the impression yesterday, like, I think they really want Byron Murphy back. And I think what was the words it was used, like, really, he's just a fit. Like, and there's a little bit of, if you pay $14 million for another corner or $17 million for Byron Murphy, you know what Murphy looks like. You know his health. You know his age. You know his character. And if somebody else is on the free agent market, you're just taking guesses at all those things. Is that worth $3 million in an average annual value, which you can just bury under the couch cushions if you want? So I've been sort of against overpaying Byron Murphy, and over the last couple of days come around to that might actually be a good idea, especially with where the cornerback room is.
Yeah, and one note on that too, I do not expect Byron to give them any kind of hometown discount. They approached his camp before week 1 last year wanting to re-sign him. We mentioned that, and he said no. He didn't like what they were offering. He said, I'm going to play out my contract year. He did the same thing in Arizona before he came to the Vikings. The year before his contract here in Arizona, they wanted to sign him. He said no. They offered him more money up front and overall than what he actually ended up signing for from the Vikings. So it actually bit him that he didn't take that deal in Arizona. He still says he's happy about that because of where he ended up, and now he wants to cash in. So he missed out on money 2 years ago. Now he wants to cash in, coming off 6 interceptions. It's going to cost the Vikings. So when you talk about overpaying or really shelling out for him, I think they're really going to have to.
Yeah, that's where that comes in of, if it's DJ Reed, who I think might be a better corner, then okay, if you're paying the same price, but you're still very clear on what you're going to get from him. The problem is when you negotiate with a guy who just had 6 interceptions, even if some of those interceptions were thrown right to him and almost anybody would have caught it, that number really shines in a negotiation. It's like he takes the ball away is something, and you go through his career, and sometimes he does. Is he going to get 6 picks next year? I would strongly bet against that. He's going to get 6 next year. And if you can't guarantee that amount of taking the ball away, which you never can with a corner, then they better be a lockdown guy, not truly a lockdown guy. I just think from a numbers perspective, it could be okay. But I also would still understand fully if they were like, okay, there's just a too rich for our blood. That was Delvin Tomlinson. I think Delvin Tomlinson's a great player, but a team comes with that kind of offer. Okay, enjoy Cleveland. Go back to the Jonathan Allen thing real quick. I don't love it because I really like the defensive tackle class. You mentioned Derek Harmon. That's a name that keeps coming up with them. Yep. I love that idea. We've heard good things about him, and his numbers are great. This is a position that they have not filled for a long time, but I think when you draft a defensive tackle, if you hit that guy's going to be with you for like 10 years. They can develop quickly. They can get on the field and impact quickly. We ran into Andre Patterson last night. We were talking Dexter Lawrence with Andre Patterson, which was really cool. And he was talking about, how he's developed and gotten better and better and better and turned into a beast. And it's like, yeah, Dexter Lawrence is going to be good for like 5, 6, 7 more years. You get that guy, you can just plug him in and have him as a franchise staple. I think if you go chasing somebody else's defensive tackle that they're okay with moving on from, like, wait, a team that competed for the Super Bowl last year is okay with moving on, I'm not sure I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's why his camp is trying to manifest maybe him coming to Minnesota, where that might not be a reality for a team that's looking for long-term solutions, as you talk about, not short-term stopgaps. Jonathan Allen's 30 years old. He's going to be making $15, I think, plus $1 million next year. So it might not fit into the picture of what they're trying to do, but they need that spot. They need somebody to come in. And what stood out to me, Matt, you and I had some off-the-record chats with some other people with the organization. What stood out to me is I came away from that thinking, boy, they talked a lot about getting pass rush with 4, disrupting with 4, not having to rely so much on just your blitz packages and all that kind of stuff. Brian Flores is amazing at doing that. He's amazing at scheming up simulated pressures, generating just a 4-man rush with linebackers and corners and all these other people. But they're talking about the D-line. They realize that teams like Philly, teams like even Kansas City, who have a decent defensive line, the teams that play late into January, into February, you have to make a difference with that group. And with Jonathan Bullard a free agent, Jerry Tillery a free agent, Harrison Phillips getting to be 29, 30 years old, they need some new blood in there, some new lifeblood in there. And the way to do it with a great defensive tackle class might be with the 24th overall pick and not shelling out top money where you've got so many other holes to fill on your roster.
I think you're supposed to, on this show, there's a little bit of a rule that if you talk to someone in the league, you're supposed to lean into the camera and go, in the league. So instead of saying, hey, Matt, you and I talked to some Vikings people off the right. No. That's totally wrong.
Sorry.
You're supposed to say, I've had conversations with people in the league that believe that the Vikings want to rush 4, as if any team ever has not wanted to rush 4, right? But no, I mean, they've been taping that thing over for long enough.
Yep.
If we were to rank right now, since we're at the Combine, let's have a 3-minute draft conversation at the Combine. If you were to rank the top 4 positions that they might go with, I would put DT, because of our conversations with people in the league. I'd put DT number 1 in the draft for them. But then is that number 1 for you, and then where's it go after that?
Yeah, I think defensive tackle or corner. Those 2 positions all positions are generally expensive in free agency, but corner especially. When you talk about salary caps going up, prices then for these guys go up, who become free agents, who become veteran free agents. That makes your first-round picks, all your draft picks, that much more valuable in terms of cost control. So Kwesi's a guy who's absolutely looking at that and valuing, okay, where is the position, where's my efficiency going to come from by selecting these certain positions? And I do think corner is one of them he's going to strongly consider in the first round. Also because they don't have a lot of long-term solutions. It's Mekhi Blackmon right now, and if maybe Byron Murphy Jr. if they re-sign him. So I would go defensive tackle. I agree with you. I'd go corner. I do think running back is up there. This is also supposed to be a great running back draft class. Maybe even if it's with their late third-round pick that they get in the comp formula, taking a guy who could help complement if it's Aaron Jones or another veteran you bring in free agency. I do think running back is a huge need. And then interior offensive line, maybe that's second or third ahead of running back, but which might be number 4 if I'm ranking them. They need interior offensive line help. That has not changed. Kevin O'Connell's comments after the season about how we need to play differently, I need to have more options. Basically, the paraphrasing is I need to have more options in the playbook with what I can go to. He felt hampered with what he could do against the Lions and the Rams because of the matchup issues up front. So to me, that interior offensive line is going to remain something that they need to fix and that they need help with.
He sort of addressed it and was trying to talk around what he said after the game, but I thought it was as raw and real as we ever see Kevin O'Connell. It was the truth, man. We got to have better guards. There's no question about it. Everybody's known it here for about 10 freaking years. Yeah. It's go time. And, in my draft simulation, which I did show to some people in the league, that is true. I did that. But I had the Vikings trading down, and I had them taking a guard at that point. But, I think that where they stand, there actually are What is going on? Is it raining?
I think this is very heavy rain.
Oh, I was
on
like,
the tin roof.
is the spaceship taking off? Am I having a seizure? What is going on? I'm sure people can't hear that. But anyway, so I feel like there's maybe one guy that would be worth a first-round pick at guard, and you could potentially trade down, take him, get your other positions. There's going to be some opportunities for that, I think, in this draft to be able to move back. But it's not always something you could just push a button. Like, you got to have somebody else that wants to move up in order for you to move back. And they have more needs than they have assets when it comes to that, which means free agency is where they have to go try to fill these guard positions, probably, unless they could take Tyler Booker.
Yeah, Kwesi and Kevin, I think, but I can't remember one or the other. They did mention both of them feel like this is a very deep draft, and that echoes the draft analysts, the respected ones, the ones who know what they're talking about how this is not necessarily a top-heavy draft. So I wouldn't be shocked. You're talking about them trading back. They need more picks. They need to figure that out. And yes, they'll be bullish in free agency. They've got top 10 cap space across the league, so they'll have the room to go after pieces. It's just a question of, do they view this draft as such where they can trade back? Because the last time they did that, Matt, the last time they traded back in the first round, we talk about it quite a bit. And people in the league, no, it didn't work out very well for them. So I do wonder that them trading back, I wonder if there's any scars there at this point, or if they can separate that and truly look at this in a vacuum.
Nobody ever talks about when the Eagles took Jalen Reagor and not Justin Jefferson.
That's
they
true.
Only talk about that 2022 draft. Yeah, that is it's still an eyesore. It is still an eyesore. And, you think about had it hit, and you would have Lewis Seen at safety as like a dynamic player. You'd have Andrew Booth Jr.
One of them hitting would have been great.
Key corner at Ingram at guard. They don't really need the linebacker thing, but, I mean, any one of those guys would have been really helpful to where they are right now. But we'll see where we go forward. Last thing before I let you go, who does Sam Darnold start for in Week 1, 2025? I've been trying to convince Vegas Radio to do it. My hope is if I go on Vegas Radio and I tell them, your team should trade for Darnold, that Brady will listen to it, like on a jog or something, and then he'll be like, you know what, that Minnesota guy makes some points, and, I should give them a higher draft pick.
How about the Tennessee Titans?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
How about the Tennessee Titans? I feel like they obviously need a stopgap quarterback, or maybe not even a stopgap. If they view Sam Darnold as the guy taking a big swing on him, their head coach could use some instant help, not some, we'll figure it out. Maybe this will be the guy this year or not. I do think, I'm trying to remember, is that Brian Callahan? Their coach has been around for a little bit of a minute here, and Will Levis has not been the guy for them.
McVay connection. I don't think they work together, but Callahan worked for McVay. O'Connell worked for McVay. It's like a mob, those guys. They're like, do you know McVay? Oh, I know McVay. Media people do that too with McVay. I don't know what it is. The hair, the winning, the success.
I don't get that.
It's cool.
He's cool. He might be cool. I don't know. L.A., sunshine.
Want to meet McVay. All right, Andrew Krammer, Star Tribune, thanks so much for popping on, and people can look forward to your coverage here from Indianapolis, and we will catch y'all later.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Football.
Football.